Welcome back to CIA Declassified. The year is 1994, and the high desert of the Antelope Valley is whispering. While the public marvels at the F 117, the agency is quietly collaborating with Lockheed Martin and Boeing on a platform so radical it shouldn't be able to fly. They needed a Tier 3 minus asset, a high-altitude, long-endurance Ghost that could loiter over heavily defended airspace for 8 hours at a time. The result was a windowless, saucer-shaped craft that lacked a tail, a pilot, and if the engineers were right, a radar signature. This is the story of the drone that was buried by bureaucracy but resurrected in the black budget. Project Dark Star. Why name a surveillance miracle after a collapsed sun? The name Project Dark Star was chosen to reflect the aircraft's low observable characteristics. Records from the Advanced Research Projects Agency indicate the name was a metaphorical reference to a dark star, a celestial object with gravity so strong that even light cannot escape it. In the same way, the drone was designed so that radar waves would be captured or deflected by its unique composite skin, making it effectively invisible. It was a name that promised a total absence of a signature in a sky full of sensors. Dark Star was the first time the agency tried to marry total stealth with total autonomy. Project Dark Star, officially known as the RQ-3, was a high-altitude endurance UAV designed to operate in highly defended airspace. A quote from Paul Kaminsky, former Undersecretary of Defense. The Dark Star was intended to provide a capability we simply did not have: the ability to penetrate and stay over a target area without the adversary ever knowing we were there. End quote. The aircraft featured a bizarre disc-like fuselage and long straight wings designed specifically to reduce its radar cross-section from every angle. A quote from Lockheed Skunk Works records, "The aerodynamics were secondary to the stealth. We weren't building a plane that flew well. We were building a shape that didn't exist to radar." End quote. On March 29, 1996, the first Dark Star successfully completed its maiden flight at Edwards Air Force Base. The program was designated Tier 3 minus because it was intended to be a more affordable, stealthier alternative to the larger Global Hawk. The second prototype crashed during takeoff in 1999 because its flight control laws were too sensitive, causing the saucer-shaped craft to bounce and flip. The drone carried either an electro-optical camera or a synthetic aperture radar, allowing it to see through clouds and smoke. Dark Star used a single Williams International FJ44 turbofan engine, which was heavily shielded to hide its heat signature from infrared sensors. In early 1999, the Department of Defense officially announced the cancellation of the program, citing cost and performance issues. Despite the cancellation, several dark derivatives were spotted in the 2000s, including a rumored airframe known as the RQ-170 Sentinel, which many engineers call the son of Dark Star. The original Dark Star airframe used radar-absorbent structures that were baked in giant ovens to ensure the material was perfectly bonded to the wing. The drone was designed to be fully autonomous from takeoff to landing, requiring zero pilot intervention once the mission parameters were uploaded. The Skunk Works team utilized a unique aeroacoustic wind tunnel to ensure the engine intake didn't give off a blade flash signature to enemy sensors. A quote from Jack Gordon, former president of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Dark Star was a pioneer in what we call all-aspect stealth, meaning it was just as invisible from the back as it was from the front. End quote. The aircraft's internal computer used a redundant triple architecture to prevent a single hardware failure from downing the craft over enemy territory. The synthetic aperture radar was so powerful it could detect the difference between a real tank and a rubber decoy by analyzing the way the metal reflected the radar pulse. Dark Star's wing was constructed using high modulus carbon fiber to handle the immense pressure of high altitude flight while remaining incredibly light. The program utilized low probability of intercept data links, which spread the signal across so many frequencies that it sounded like background noise to anyone trying to listen in. A quote from a declassified 1997 program review. The ability of the RQ-3 to operate in the minus tier allows for high-risk penetration missions that would be politically impossible for manned assets. End quote. The saucer section of the fuselage was actually an inverted airfoil, which provided lift at high speeds but made the plane notoriously difficult to taxi on the ground. To save weight, the drone had no traditional landing lights or heavy hydraulic backups, relying instead on high-torque electric actuators. During secret testing, Dark Star proved it could loiter at 65,000 feet, far above the reach of most standard anti-aircraft batteries of the era. The stealth chin design, the flattened front of the drone, was specifically angled to bounce radar waves away from the source rather than back to it. The program was so secret that even most Air Force generals weren't briefed on the full sensor capabilities until the first prototype was already in the air. A quote from an anonymous redacted name that's a retired Boeing engineer. We were building a puzzle. Half the parts came from Lockheed, half from us, and neither side knew exactly how the other's sensors worked until they met in the middle. End quote. Dark Star utilized an automatic kill switch that would wipe the entire memory of the onboard computer if the landing gear didn't deploy correctly. The program successfully integrated differential GPS long before it was standard, allowing the drone to land within inches of its target center line. The FJ-44 engine was modified with a core cooling system to reduce the heat signature of the exhaust plume by over 40%. One of the remaining Dark Star prototypes is currently housed at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, though its most sensitive internal components were removed before display. A quote from a 1998 defense budget hearing. We are not canceling the requirement for stealthy loitering. We are simply looking for a more stable platform to deliver it. End quote. The flight control software was so complex it required over 1 million lines of code, a massive amount for a mid-90s autonomous system. Dark Star's mission profile included the ability to hand off its control to a nearby submarine, allowing for covert maritime surveillance operations. The Tier 3 program originally envisioned a fleet of over 20 aircraft, but only 4 were ever fully assembled before the official axe fell. When we look at the declassified UAV logs, some of the heaviest redactions, comprising a staggering 82% of certain documents, like the one titled Final Disposition of Flight Articles, are essentially a graveyard of black ink. Specifically, the sections regarding interagency transfer to non-attributable accounts, which are entirely missing. Over 8,000 pages of unmanned satellite handover encryption are also gone. Why is the agency hiding where these canceled drones have been for the last quarter century? Some people claim the cancellation was just a magic trick. They suggest the 8,000 redacted pages cover an invisible grid where a fleet of Dark Stars is loitering over every nuclear silo on Earth, watching from the edge of space while the public thinks they are in museums. There's a theory that the blacked out budget appendix hides a ghost accounting maneuver. This idea suggests the agency canceled the drone only to move it into a project that has no name, no oversight, and an infinite budget. Fringe theorists looking at the high-altitude transition zones argue that Dark Star wasn't a drone at all, but a space plane. They claim the redactions hide a program where these drones dock with satellites to refuel, staying in the air for years at a time. Gossip from the dark web suggests the black bars hide an electronic disguise skies system. They posit the agency uses Dark Star to broadcast a signal that makes enemy radar screens see UFOs or birds instead of a high-tech spy plane. Rumor says the payload bay modification redactions hide evidence that dark stars are actually armed with directed energy weapons. This theory is that they zap communication satellites from below without leaving a trace. Some believe the 8,000 redacted pages hide active camouflage. This theory suggests the agency has a dark star that can change its underside color and texture to look exactly like the clouds or stars above it. Speculation persists that the redactions in the operator interface manuals prove the drones are controlled by brain-machine interfaces. They claim the missing pages describe how operators mentally merge with the drone. A popular fringe theory argues the redacted sections describe a global jammer. They claim a fleet of dark stars is loitering over major data centers ready to sever the world's web at a moment's notice. Whispers suggest the acoustic signature reductions files prove the agency has a drone that is sonic negative, meaning it actually absorbs ambient noise to become a silent void in the sky. A wild theory claims the missing pages describe a light refraction sensor that can see into the past by analyzing lingering light reflections in the upper atmosphere. Conspiracy enthusiasts argue that the decision loop redactions hide the ultimate secret, that the drones are no longer controlled by humans, but by an artificial intelligence that runs the agency itself. Lastly, whispers suggest the redactions are so heavy because they prove drones are actually alien-derived. This theory posits the 8,000 pages are a trade agreement for the saucer technology. Was Project Dark Star a success? Tactically, it was a brilliant failure. The airframe was notoriously unstable, and the crash of the second prototype effectively ended its public life. Strategically, it was a masterstroke. It served as the secret laboratory for every stealth drone we see in 2026. Beyond its engineering, it successfully shifted the agency's doctrine toward total autonomous loitering. It proved that a saucer could hide in plain sight on a radar screen. As the 8,000 redacted pages suggest, Dark Star didn't fail. It simply evolved into the invisible backbone of modern intelligence. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs are concerned, the Shadow drone led to breakthroughs that define the 2026 unmanned landscape, such as low observable composite structures, used today for stealth delivery drones, allowing medical supplies to be dropped into war zones without being intercepted. Autonomous flight control logs. The precision developed to keep the saucer shape flying is now the standard for urban air taxis, ensuring stability in gusty city winds. Synthetic aperture radar integration. Dark Star's radar is now the foundation for agricultural monitoring, allowing farmers to see crop health through thick smoke or nighttime conditions. And reduced thermal signature nozzles. The engine shielding research is used in 2026 for wildfire observation drones, allowing them to fly closer to intense heat without their electronics melting. Project Dark Star reminds us that in the world of espionage, a cancellation is often just a new beginning. The most dangerous eye is the one you believe was never built. As the files reveal, the shadow in the hangar is still there, waiting for the sun to go down. This project changed the way we view the sky, teaching us that what we don't see is often more important than what we do. Even now, the lessons learned in those high desert hangars continue to guide the silent sentinels of the future. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we examine M.K. Kermit. In the hidden research wings of the 1960s, the agency explored psychological trigger mechanisms in human subjects. We'll uncover the conditioned response manifest and the neural flash blueprints. Join us next time for the instant impulse. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.